Alright, look, I know what you're probably thinking. Bo, we just got a very good Nintendo Direct. It had a ton of exciting announcements. We don't need to start thinking about a September Direct. And to that, I don't really have a rebuttal. You're right, it is way too early to really be speculating about another Nintendo Direct, but you know how I like to do it on this channel. So today, I wanted to talk about the likelihood of a September Direct, because for so long, a lot of people really believe that the June Direct that Nintendo confirmed back in May, a lot of people were confident that that would be the final Switch 1 focused Nintendo Direct. Now, I was always skeptical of that, and after seeing the Direct, I must say, I think the likelihood of another Nintendo Direct in September is very high, because a lot of us were expecting, a couple exciting things maybe from the Direct, but like a lot of remasters and remakes. And we got one remaster in Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, but I feel like there is so much juice still in the Switch engine here, so to speak, that I think there is plenty for them to show in a September showcase. Now, this does pose a lot of questions. When does the Switch 2 reveal come in now? Because that's a huge kind of factor in this, right? A lot of people think the Switch 2 will be revealed in September or October, but I am pretty confident in saying that after how good that June Direct was, I think it's very unlikely that we don't get another Nintendo Direct focused just on Switch 1 in September. Maybe they do it early September, maybe you get your Switch 2 reveal in late September, October. Honestly, at this point, I'm not even positive we're getting that reveal this calendar year. They said they would reveal the Switch 2 this fiscal year, so ending March 31st. I could see them pushing that to January at this point. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not too sure if I'm sold on that idea. I might do a separate video on that, but I wanted to talk about the September Direct because I think there's a lot of potential here, more than people are realizing. So just from what we know, right, I think there is already a pretty packed slate that they could show again. Usually the September Direct is in the first half of the month. Our next Nintendo release, major Nintendo release after Nintendo World Championships in a couple of weeks, which isn't major at all, is Echoes of Wisdom, which I think is like September 26th. So a Direct would happen before Echoes of Wisdom. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because they can do a September Direct and maybe have one or two, maybe even three first-party announcements for early 2025, but they can show Echoes of Wisdom again with a new trailer. I mean, this will likely be the first trailer we get since it was announced. They could show more Mario and Luigi Brothership, more Super Mario Party Jamboree, even a new trailer for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Like, there is so much on the horizon from September to January for Switch 1 that getting updates on all of those games, I think, is very realistic in a September Direct. But it's not even just that, because I do think, like I said earlier, there is so much more juice still in the Switch engine. I feel like there's more remasters coming. Maybe not necessarily new games, although I don't think most people were expecting a brand new 2D Zelda game and a brand new Mario & Luigi, certainly. But maybe let's assume there's not that many more new games, right? Let's assume it's mostly remasters. I still feel like there's a lot coming, right? We talk about Wind Waker and Twilight Princess all the time. I don't know if I'm convinced they're happening. We talk about stuff like F-Zero GX and Tomodachi Life and Metroid Prime 2 and 3, which we'll talk about again in a little bit. Like, there's so many more remasters that people have been expecting, and maybe these things won't happen at all, but when you look at how well the Switch is still doing in its 8th year on the market, you have to imagine Nintendo has plans for even more games releasing on the Switch 1 deep into 2025, maybe even 2026 at this point. So I think more remasters could totally be announced in a September Direct. Once again, I'm not sure if they'd announce any major games. Maybe the most major of that lineup would be a full remake of something like Fire Emblem 4. Maybe that would be your big kind of headliner game for that Nintendo Direct, while giving updates on all these other things and having those smaller, like, kind of more port-esque games like a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 ports, or Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD port, whereas Fire Emblem 4 Remake is like a full new kind of game for a lot of people, right? I just feel like there's a lot more coming, and a September Direct. I mean, if you look at the September Direct in 2023, we got games announced through June 2024, right? Because, well, I guess they were already announced for the most part, but Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Princess Peach Showtime, that's June and March respectively, but also Thousand Year Door was announced in that Nintendo Direct, alongside another Code and Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which came out in January and February. So we already have one January game for this year, and I don't think they'll double up on that, but I think it's very likely that we could get a September Direct here, and they announce the game for February, and maybe even the game for March, and maybe even another one beyond that. all lower stakes stuff, right? I'm talking like, okay, maybe a February game could be Triple Deluxe, Kirby Triple Deluxe, or Planet Robobot. I actually think that's going to be my prediction for next year. I think there's a good chance that February we get a Kirby game. Maybe it's not necessarily a port or a remake, whatever. Maybe it is a new game, a new spinoff, or something along those lines. But a Kirby game for February, they could announce that in the September Direct. They could announce Fire Emblem 4 for March. There's so many options for what they could show in a September Direct still. The Switch is not dead yet. People were trying to say it was dead last year. People were trying to say, oh, it's running out of steam. And yeah, the sales are down, but the active user base is up. And the games are selling, maybe not, they're not having the long legs that they were having earlier in the life cycle of the Switch. Like Tears of the Kingdom, for example, has already pretty much dried up, but they're getting a bigger initial boost because that user base is still so active. I believe it was this week Luigi's Mansion 2 HD launched at #1 in the UK and in Japan. I don't know if we have any numbers for North America yet, but I'm imagining that's doing very well. Thousand Year Door did pretty well. Princess Peach Showtime did fine. They're not just going to let that go because, oh, Switch 2 is coming out, and that's exciting. The software might get a little less interesting, but they will keep selling new Switch games or new old Switch games well into 2026, I'd imagine at this point, just because of the legs this console has had. I mean, I don't think even Nintendo would have expected the Switch to be still selling the way it is in 2025. Like, if you asked their executives back in 2022, like, when do you think the Switch is really going to peter off? They probably would have said 2024, but, hindsight's 2020. Now they know, like, okay, well, this is still going, and that's why we're getting a lot of stuff like, Mario & Luigi and Echoes of Wisdom are big surprises, and they're very exciting, but, like, Country Returns HD is being outsourced to Forever Entertainment. I don't think anybody really expected that, and that deal with them was signed back in 2021, so I guess you could say maybe back then Nintendo kind of had that foresight of, like, we need to get some of these lower effort games. I don't want to say lower effort. I'm sure those developers are putting their hearts into it, but like cheaper games, let's say, to develop, right? They're getting these cheaper games out for the Switch while their main teams are focusing on Switch 2 development. The 3D Mario team's making a Switch 2 game. Meanwhile, Grezzo is making is making Echoes of Wisdom, and we could, I think, assume at this point that Ilka is making Mario & Luigi, not their main developers, more of like the B team, if you will, for Nintendo. So we're gonna keep getting more remasters next year, and I think a September Direct is the perfect place to announce that, especially if the Switch 2 reveal is coming in, the fall this year. Maybe it's later September, maybe it's October, or even if it's in January, you want to get that Switch 2 slate announced early on. I was saying this before the June Direct, and we kind of got a little bit of what I was predicting, where I said they would announce some games for 2025. Now, we only got Country Returns HD, but in my opinion, the way I'm looking at it, for Nintendo, it makes sense to basically just announce their Switch slate now. They're definitely going to have some stragglers that need to be announced after the Switch 2 is out, like they did with the 3DS, but it makes sense since the Switch 2 will be very similar to the Switch hardware that, like, you just announce that Switch 1 slate now, because I don't really envision it being, like, a thing where you have a Nintendo Direct and there's, like, a Switch 1 section, unless the Switch 2 has a completely different name, which I doubt. I'm talking like Switch isn't in the title. I feel like that could just get kind of confusing, but we'll see. So more remasters. I think they will have a September Direct to announce those. I also, maybe this is Cope, feel like there's still a chance for a Shadow Drop this year. Their holiday lineup is good. There is no denying that, but I said in my kind of follow-up reaction to the Direct when I did a full discussion, I feel like there's one game missing. And I don't know what that game is necessarily for me. Like, if Fire Emblem Remake had been announced there, that would have been like the perfect diversity pick for this holiday season. That would have made me really excited about the lineup. And I mean, I'm already really excited, but like that one more thing would have put it over the top as like honestly one of the best holiday seasons of the Nintendo Switch, in my opinion. I feel like there's still potential and more room for one more game. Now, nothing to that scale, certainly, like not like a full remake, but could we see Prime 2 and 3 get shadow dropped in the September Direct? Maybe we get a new trailer for Prime 4 Beyond. I don't know about that, but maybe that's, where we finally get Prime 2 and 3. Maybe we get the long fabled Zelda ports. I don't think that would really make any sense given Echoes of Wisdom releases a few weeks later. Maybe we get something else entirely. Maybe a year after F-Zero 99 releases, we get F-Zero GX Shadow Drop. Maybe we get Luigi's Mansion 1. The sky is the limit, really. I mean, there's a lot of GameCube and Wii stuff they could do in a lower effort fashion that they kind of just shadow drop just to test the waters. Maybe something like, I don't know, like Chibi Robo or Sin and Punishment Star Successor. Maybe those get shadow dropped on the eShop. The sky is really the limit there. I think there is room for that. I'm not like 100% confident in that prediction. It is possible that we go through the rest of this year without any more Nintendo games releasing. But I think an early September shadow drop that gives it like 2 or 3 weeks separation from Echoes of Wisdom, get a physical release out in October or, November, even December if they want to do that. I don't think that's impossible. I don't think it's that unlikely, but I'm not going to put my bets on that either. Now, there is one other elephant in the room, and that is level 5. I keep mentioning level 5 in these dang Nintendo Direct videos because I really do feel like they are part of the puzzle. They are a very important piece of the Nintendo Switch lineup moving forward. Even though Nintendo isn't publishing their games, they have a lot of games announced for the Nintendo Switch, some exclusives, and these are very important games. I mean, a new Professor Layton game is slated for next year. We're getting a new Fantasy Life game on October 10th that did not show up in the June Direct. That's really weird. They teased a new Yokai Watch game for an April event, and then they canceled the April event. Like, what is going on with Level 5? I feel like a September Direct to give us a, maybe an updated trailer on Fantasy Life. I think at this point we don't really need to see much more of it, but give us an updated trailer on that, and then give us release dates, man. Give us release dates for Inazuma 11. I think that game's still in beta. Give us a release date. Give us a release date for Deca Police. Give us like even a window, like say summer 2025. Like, that's fine. And then for Professor Layton, say like, I don't know, holiday 2025 or something. Just give us an update on all of these games. They announced all of these games in the February Direct last year, and we still haven't seen them. My conspiracy theory is that a lot of this stuff actually was kind of maybe planned in conjunction with Switch 2, but I don't know if Level 5 at that point, early last year, was announcing these Switch 1 games. I mean, Deca Police, Professor Layton, Fantasy Life, these are all coming to Switch 1. I don't know if they were announcing these games with, like, Switch 2 in mind. That'd be really weird, but Level 5 is interesting, man. I really would need to see what they're cooking. I refuse to believe that they're simply this mismanaged. I could do a whole video on that, but the rollout of this new slate of games from them is very interesting because they announced, I think, 3 games, right? Yeah, 3 games last February in that full Nintendo Direct, and we haven't gotten any of them yet, and I believe 2 of them were slated for last year, and now we're finally getting Fantasy Life in October, and I'm very excited for it. I worked with them, I did a video on Megaton Musashi, so, no hate to Level 5, but, man, what is going on? That weird, announcement for Deca Police where they were like, it's delayed to, 2026, but then we're like, actually, wait a minute, we didn't mean to say 2026, we meant 2025. I don't know what's going on with them, but I feel like if a September Direct were to happen, they would almost certainly be a big player in that showcase. Show us more Deca Police, show us more Professor Layton, maybe announce this Yokai Watch game, which I imagine, even if it was part of the Switch 2 plan, I'd imagine that game will probably still come to Switch 1. That'd be kind of weird to leave that install base in the dust when it's so huge. So yeah, Level 5 is weird, but I think we're getting a September Direct, man. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I know it's a little early. I know I'm going to be getting comments like, why are you talking about this when we just got such a banger of a Nintendo Direct? But you guys know me. I like to speculate and hype up events that aren't going to happen for another 2 months. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that fun stuff. I do very much appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter @BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.